Hey folks, welcome to Yoga with Helen Roscoe. I hope you're well. In this session today, we're going to be exploring a series of embodied movement inquiries which will help us prepare for Trikonasana, triangle pose. And what I mean by embodied movement inquiries is that they will be largely somatic. Somatics is interested in what is happening in the body, so sensations, lived experience, felt experience. And the movements tend to be a little freer than what we might come across in a standard yoga practice, a little more playful, often working with gravity. You might have heard of Feldenkrais practice, for example, or Hana somatics. These are specific practices that are really focusing on those sensations and experiences in the body that help us to navigate tension, to free up movement pathways, and they can be a really therapeutic way to move and experience ourselves in the present moment that we're in. So what we're going to do is start on the back of the body. It might be useful for you to have a blanket underneath your head for a little bit of support. So placing that blanket somewhere at the top of your mat. And then you might like to have access to a block, a yoga brick, and just have that nearby for later on in the practice. So to begin with, just coming to settle, bring yourself down carefully, compassionately, so be kind to yourself as you come through this practice today. Just lowering yourself down with care, finding the back of the body on the ground when you're ready, and just experiencing any little wriggles, any little kind of undulations or agitations, feelings in your body that you need to just undo a little here so that you can fully settle and arrive in your body with your breath. Bringing your knees together, just let your feet move out to the side. A little wriggle there in the pelvis. Might be a few sighing breaths that you're going to take just to help you settle as well. So resting your hands somewhere on your body can be a useful way to bring your awareness to yourself. Quality and sense of touch is a call to presence. And then when we start to bring awareness to breath, then you can feel the breath moving into your hands as you breathe in, and then softening back away from your hands towards the earth as you breathe out. Noticing the space of the in-breath, noticing the softening of the out-breath. And then let's bring the hands to the waist, side of the body, a rib cage. And do the same thing here. So noticing how the rib cage and the sides of your waist expand with the breath in. Sides of the waist and the rib cage soften with the breath out. Emptying the lungs. Inhale, spacious. Exhale, soften. So bring your hands down to meet your hip bones. Just gently roll your head a little from side to side. Moving your jaw. And then come back to centre. Notice your breath in, and as you exhale and your head rolls to the right, wiggle your pelvis to the right as well. Opening a little across the left side of the body. So breathe in and bring the head to centre. The pelvis comes back to neutral. Exhale to the other side. So starting with something small here in the pelvis and the head, just connecting that side body, moving from one side of your hip along all the way to the ear on the same side, and then back through centre. Your head comes through centre and rolling, and having that little C curve shape of the spine. So as the pelvis goes to the right and the head goes to the right, the shape on the waist contracts, opposite side expands. Have a little check-in with those shoulder blades. Notice what happens as your pelvis and your head go to one side, the way that you kind of wriggle around across the shoulders. And just eventually bringing that inquiry to a close there, just noticing how you feel. Let your arms just wriggle a little, fingertips settling back into your breath pattern, arms by your sides. With your in-breath, take the arms overhead. And with your out-breath, bring your arms forwards and down. So repeating this pattern, something more familiar from yoga. On the breath in, the arms go overhead. And on the breath out, the arms come forwards and down. And as you take this exploration with the arms coming overhead, inviting that space along the sides of the body. And as your arms come forwards and down, just returning to something neutral. Continue to explore the pattern. Out and over on the breath in. Forwards and down on the breath out. This time as your arms come out and over onto the ground behind you, let them form a Y shape. So feel free to have that little wriggle around, and they want to be supported by the ground. Your palms just curling in a little so they're not extending through the fingertips. Walk your feet out to a mat distance and take a few breaths here. And then when your exhalation comes, I'd like you to roll over onto the edges of the feet as your knees Z-leg themselves over to one side. And the in-breath brings them back to centre. And the out-breath takes them to the other side. So starting to find a rhythm with your breath and your movement here in this more expansive shape. Moving more fully into the side body. Opening a little across the expanse, the diagonal. Your knees go in one direction and the opposite arm extends away from them. And then a sense of coming back to centre on the breath in, and then exhaling the opposite direction. So there's this reaching that's happening across the diagonal here, from your knees, across the torso to the fingertips. Exploring that movement dynamically, we go one side to the other at your own pace. See what happens with your feet as you take your knees over as well. You might notice there's a bit of purchase there between the edges of the feet and the ground. And just taking your time to come back to something more neutral again in your body. Maybe the knees drop in. If you bring your hands across your chest here, give yourself a little hug. Maybe even rock shoulders a little from side to side. And just moving across the rib cage, The knees coming in over your tummy, just sliding the hands in behind the backs of the knees, and you can pause there for a few breaths. Opening up a little through the backs of the legs, stroking your hands up and down the legs a few times, inviting a softness into the knees as you breathe in, and then an expansion and openness as your pelvis flattens, your feet move up, the knees open a little in the out breath. Grounding on the out breath, softening on the in breath. Explore waking up your legs gently here. Then we're going to bring the knees back in over the tummy, roll over to one side, just pause there for a few moments. And then I'd like you to make your own way up to standing. So pressing down, just come up slowly. That's the only thing I ask of you, that it's not a rush, it's not a jump up to stand. So when you come up to stand, just take a few steps up and down your mat. See what you do in your body to arrive in this standing position. You might find it useful to move props out of the way. Have a little shrug of the shoulders. Okay, so placing your feet at hip distance, toes spreading, just padding those feet out a little. I'd like you to bring your arms out in front of you. Your fingers and your thumbs are spread wide. And as you breathe in, bring your right arm across. So this right arm comes across, your left hand expands out, and your right elbow draws back behind you. Then breathe out, bring it back to center. On the breath in, you can go the other way. And focusing on this turning of your rib cage and maybe your head as well, taking the gaze with you. So turning, 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 coming back, back, back and back. And there's this little reach, opening out the back arm towards the space behind you on the breath in, and then gathering that hand back to meet the opposite hand. As you bring one arm back across you, have a sense of reaching the opposite arm in front of you. Keep exploring that at your own pace. And when you feel drawn to, come back here with your hands, release them down, have a little shake up. And we're just going to step those feet out wider apart, toes turning out. And I'd like you to bend your knees and sweep your thighs out with your hands. And then come back, breathe in. Exhale, bend the knees, sweep the hands out. Inhale to return. Be useful to bring in a bit of sound there on the breath. Just opening out a little here through the hips. Coming back to center. Bring your back toes all the way across to the midline, almost like a 45-degree angle. And then your front toes pointing to the front of your mat, the top of your mat. have that little check-in with your pelvis, that your pelvis is with you as opposed to open out in that wide stance that we might familiarise with Warrior Two. Then I'd like you to have a little softness in your front knee. Bring your block closer to you for a bit of support for when you need it. I'd like you to bring the same hand as your front leg here on your tummy, and then the same arm as your back leg comes onto your chest. So we're going to exhale here to settle. On the breath in, a sense of rise, a lift, as if between the hands, finding that space. As you exhale, have a little hinge forwards. On the in-breath, a sense of space, emphasising that back heel up to the top of your head. Feel free to adjust your feet as you go. Exhale, coming forwards a little. Inhale, expanding, lengthening. Exhale again. Hinging forwards. Inhale to lengthen. Exhale. Bring your hand across your belly. Lower it down to the support. This could also be the seat of a chair as well. And then bring your top hand onto your hip. Turning your rib cage with the breath in, turning the rib cage up towards the space above you. And with your breath out, have a sense of what it's like to raise your arm up with you. And then with that front knee, if it's quite a deep bend that you have there, just exploring that opening across the front knee, keeping a softness there, not locking out through the back, through the front knee, through both knees, not locking out through both knees. So then this top shoulder for me just feels a little bit on the stiff side. So I'm going to wave it up and over on the breath in, taking it up, on the breath out, waving it back towards the hip and exploring a little more range there across the shoulder, moving the head as well. And you can play around with the height of your block, softness in that hand, so you don't feel like all the emphasis is coming down onto that hand. You could press a little into your fingertips and reach up into that top arm. Have a little look around. Bring the arm forwards and down. We're going to come into a lunge. So we're bringing that back foot out a little more behind us. Again, blocks either side of the feet here could be really useful, keeping the ground lifted. And then with an exhalation, I'd like you to find downward facing dog. If this is not possible for you today, then we could come to an all fours shape and take a few rounds of moving in cat-cow. So bringing the knees down, rounding up, taking the hips back. Or from down dog, pausing, bending one knee at a time, just slowly making your way through that inquiry. And then walking your hands towards your feet, finding a forward bend. If you're in all fours, coming up into forward bend. Drop the tailbone down, take a breath in. As you exhale, bring yourself up to stand. Slowly, 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 slowly. Take a few steps up and down your mat when you arrive. Just readjust yourself to this upright position once again. Finding your block, and we'll step those legs wide once more. Placing your block now with your other foot, opposite side. So I'm going to bring the back heel behind me as I pivot on the ball of the foot, and then the front toes are now pointing in the opposite direction from my triangle before. It depends which side you did when you explored this on the other side. So we want to bring that hip with us, so a little more forward facing with the pelvis as opposed to open facing with the pelvis. So that could mean, again, we need to make a few adjustments there through the feet to bring that pelvis round with us. softness in the front knee, positioning your block where you find it most useful. Seat of a chair could also be really useful, somewhere here in front of you. And then bringing your hand onto your belly, your hand onto your chest. Connecting with your breath here, so on your in-breath, finding space between the two as you lengthen your spine. On the out-breath, a little forward tilt. On the in-breath, keep the space. A diagonal line coming from the back heel to the crown of your head. So active along that back leg towards the space above you, crown of your head, and then exhale, keep on that hinge of the hips. And you're going to turn when you're ready, bringing your hand on your belly down onto the lower block or the seat of a chair or even the floor, and then your top hand coming onto your hip, and turning that rib cage so it can be useful to experience that roundedness and then the openness. On the breath in, pausing as you exhale, taking your arm up as if towards the space above you, and just getting a sense of what it's like on this side. My front leg, I'm just going to move it a little more towards straight, so I'm lifting up from that knee bend into Trikonasana, exploring some movements here with that arm overhead, looking down as the arm comes across and over, looking towards the armpit. Just exploring a little range of movement there for the shoulder. I'm just going to play around with the height of this brick. Explore for a few moments with the arm opening up, just wriggling that wrist. Breath in across the chest. And then finally waving those arms down to the ground into that high lunge, so your back knee is lifted. Just pausing for a moment. You can use those blocks as well. Have your hands on blocks there for raising the ground up. And then exhale and step your right foot out behind you, coming into down dog once again. Or if you'd prefer, find your knees coming to the ground. And once again, so you could go from all fours to down dog, or all fours, taking the hips back, or you could stay in down dog for a few breaths, experiencing a sense of grounding on the exhalations, maybe a softness in the knees on the in-breath. At a certain point, when you feel drawn to, finding the all fours shape if you haven't done so already, keeping the toes tucked under. As you breathe out, stretching a little into those feet, wriggling your hips back and back and back towards the heels. And then breathing in, coming back to all fours, softening the tops of your feet, and once again wriggling those hips back and back and back towards the heels. And just taking your time there to pause once again, to settle, supporting your head if it's not on the ground. And then bring your hands up to meet you either side of your knees, and just gently bring yourself upright from there. Coming up to a seat. I'm going to sit onto a blanket, and you can sit into a cross-leg position of your choice, or maybe you'd prefer to have your feet out in front of you, or in a wide leg shape. Or if this is uncomfortable for you, I'd recommend coming to sit into a chair. So taking a few moments here to settle. Bring your hands alongside your pelvis, fingertips on the ground. And as you breathe in, taking your right arm up and up and up and up and over to the space behind you. It comes to your thigh, and then you walk your left hand behind you. Taking a breath in here, as you exhale, just casually come back. Hands to the ground, a little press on the fingertips as you breathe in. Take your left arm up, just watching that arm, making that arc around the body and down to the opposite thigh. And then your right hand comes behind you, and you pause and you breathe in here. And then exhale and come back and back and back. And we'll do that once more to each side. Pause when you're ready. Noticing those bodily sensations that you are made of. Noticing where there is heat and where there is coolness. Where you feel grounded and supported, and where you feel spacious and light. And then for a few moments, stay with your breath. Invite your breath to be natural, gentle, quiet breath. Notice how you feel. And if you'd like to join me, bring your hands together at the center of your chest and just have that little exchange and honoring of the practice. Exploring roots into something that is expansive and broad, back down to something that is neutral and calm. Okay, thank you.